The other day I was sitting outside my house when a squirrel inched towards me in tiny, careful steps, signaling that it was hungry. I went and grabbed some peanuts and then I dropped them on the ground. The squirrel took one and ran away, then came back, took one and ran away again. This sparked a question, and this is one of the most important questions you will ever be asked. What if Jesus Christ had been a squirrel? What would you do about that? Would you give him your nut? Now, this is the most important question you'll ever be asked. What if you gave Jesus Christ a cookie? What if you went back in time and gave one to him? Would he eat your cookie? How would he react? You might be thinking, well, we don't know because nobody who knew Jesus ever documented giving him a cookie. Luckily though, nobody who knew Jesus documented anything about him. So that means we can make educated guesses about what he would think of being given a cookie based on how we interpret information written by people who heard things about him from other people who also heard things about him from things he might have done 2,000 years ago. Sorry about the run-on sentence, but I just want you to understand that this is the same legitimate scholarship you're used to. Fringe maybe, but legitimate. Before we explore specific scenarios of giving Jesus a cookie, we should establish a truth. Jesus was always fixated on people getting in their carbs. According to John 6, when it was time to feed the 5,000 who had gathered for him, the very first thing Jesus says is, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" Bread in his mind needed to be the first responders to this crisis. Then, once the 5,000 ate, Jesus immediately says to his disciples, "Gather the pieces of bread that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." Jesus clearly can't stand the idea of his precious bread going to waste. He also says that the bread of God comes down from heaven and gives life to the world, and declares that he is, quote, the bread of life. Here, Jesus is so overcome by bread, he claims that he's made of it. What the fuck? And he also believes that bread gives you life. But why? His appeal for bread couldn't have been about nutrition or fulfillment, as there are better food items for achieving those things. It must have been about the taste of bread. Cookies taste very sugary, which is a kind of thing Jesus probably never encountered. But a close cousin from 2,000 years ago would likely be bread. Matthew 7 verse 9, and I quote, "Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone?" End quote. If Jesus asks for bread, don't give him a stone. Give him something better. A cookie. Jesus said the standard is bread. But shouldn't you strive to exceed the bare minimum for the Son of God? Shouldn't you give Jesus your cookie? So what would happen if you did? Well, you'd likely become one of Jesus Christ's elite employees. The cookie commissioner, you might be called. You'd probably end up in the Bible. And so that's a lot of visibility for you. And people would perpetually percolate on the theology of Christ eating your cookie. But what about a specific? What if you handed Jesus a cookie during the Last Supper? Luke 22 verse 19, quote, "And Jesus took the bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, 'This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.'" Maybe rather than bread, Jesus would have broken the cookie as his body. Maybe the disciples would have eaten his cookie. Maybe the tradition today would be to eat milk and cookies, rather than wine and bread. What would happen if you gave Jesus Christ a cookie as he was getting crucified? If bread gives life from his perspective, imagine what a cookie would do. It's very possible that he'd surge with life so much that he'd leap off the cross and flee the scene. It might give him a second life. Actually, what if Jesus was given a cookie? Think about it. Bread might have given him life, but it clearly wasn't enough to save Jesus from his death. Maybe they gave him a cookie in heaven before the third day. Maybe that's how he was resurrected. More likely than you think. The remaining question here is, how would Jesus eat the cookie? Would he eat it at a slow pace? A fast pace? Would he nibble on the cookie? Or would he deep the cookie? It's just food for thought. I hope this video helps shed light on giving Jesus a cookie. We've been needing to talk about this, and it only makes sense, right? Think about the saying, if you give a mouse a cookie, he will ask for a glass of milk. The Bible gives us these information cookies, and we take them. And some of us run, because there is no such thing as a wrong interpretation or unworthy question. There really isn't. And I truly feel and believe that God planted this in my spirit to share with you. So yeah, do you guys think Jesus would eat your cookie? Also, what type of cookie would you give him? For me, personally, I think a chocolate chip is the most spiritually sound and rich. So that's what I would go with. But maybe you don't think the answer is a cookie, you know? Maybe we should give him a burger. Maybe even a nothing burger, perhaps. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.